So much going on. That's why this is going to be a vlog. Got a couple announcements to make or things to show you, and then we're going to take a look around my totally moved in and ready to go studio, which some of you asked for. So stay tuned. Buckle up, buddy. It's going to be a fun one. Hello Minders, welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. And we're going to do a little bit of a studio tour today. I am totally moved in. I've got art up on the walls. Got books all moved over and arranged.
That's what I'm talking about.
Still a few things to kind of organize, but first of all, I wanted to talk about this. So I kind of retired from doing commercial design and illustration 7 years ago. There's one thing that might make me come out of retirement to do a design and illustration job, and that is family. Very proud of this. My daughter number 3, I have 5 kids, 4 of which all have kids and have given us 11 grandkids. The number 3 child, daughter, loves to write, and she's really good at it, and this is her first novel. I'm very proud to show it to you. She asked me a while ago if I would do the cover illustration. It's an amazing accomplishment, and I will put a link to it down below. I hope you'll check it out because it's a really good story. She had it professionally edited and proofread. It's a sci-fi tale, sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of tale. It's available in a hardback, a softback, and a Kindle version. This is the original finished illustration, and I had a blast doing it. We decided, really she suggested, that it be sort of a loose line and wash, and I was thrilled with that idea. I ended up getting reference for this very extreme perspective of like an elevator going up towards the sky. Wanted to make it sort of a personal capsule sort of icon. She liked the idea of making it sort of Art Deco, almost steampunk, sort of sci-fi but retro. Again, I thought that was a fantastic idea. So this was the design. I ended up doing this line work with colored pencil, black colored pencil, and that just gave it an indelible line. But there's a little bit more nuance I can add with pencil than if I'd done it in ink. And then we just did a loose watercolor treatment, which was just really, really fun to do. So the novel is lifted. I'm extremely proud of my daughter for doing this. She's a wife, mother to 2 children, just recently finished a degree in nursing, and is now a registered nurse at a local hospital system. So this is an achievement. I mean, this is really an achievement, and especially with the quality of which her writing is. So if you're interested in a pretty neat sci-fi kind of tale, maybe you'll want to check it out. All right, what else I got going on? Well, if you've seen my latest video, then you've seen this painting. I wanted to try out the auto stretcher with a larger piece of paper, and it did great. It's a little bit of waviness in the paper, but it stretched and I thought flattened out pretty nicely. I've had a lot of questions about why I removed the painting from the stretcher. What you have to understand, and I don't think a lot of people understand, that the stretcher bars on an auto stretcher don't stretch anything. The paper stretches itself when it shrinks. The bars on the stretcher, just like staples in a board, only hold the paper down while it shrinks. So once that shrinking is done and the paper's dry, you can take it out of the stretcher, and that's exactly what I did. And then I put it on another drawing board just to be able to paint without the stretcher in the way. And really the stretcher wasn't that much in the way, but I thought I would try that approach, and I thought it worked fine. Now I can iron this if I want to get it even flatter, but pretty much it's very flat. I hope you'll check out that episode if you haven't already. This was a spontaneous painting meant to sort of look like the Smokies going up the side of a mountain. And it was really fun to paint. All right, over here, this is a Patreon video that I did. I did some compositional studies for patrons. And then we've come back, and I'm still editing the color version. I went back with each of those compositional studies and did a color study. And those videos will be available for patrons. The first part 1, the compositional studies, is already available, and I'm editing the second part now. And from this, my plan was to do 2 paintings. And here are those 2 paintings. And it turns out I needed a more horizontal layout or horizontal aspect ratio. Now these have a little bit more of a specific use in the future. What I can't really say much about it now, but I will be making videos from both of these. One of them, probably this one, I will do for YouTube in general, and the second one I will show the process for patrons as an exclusive Patreon video. All right, well, for those of you who asked, let's do a brief studio tour. And this is my painting easel area over here. Same desk as I've always had, same easel.
I'd have gone pro in a heartbeat. I'd be making millions of dollars.
That's the Reichson table easel. This is my background. Everybody say hello to Reese. He's pretty cozy over here in his little spot. You've seen my intros, you've seen my new sign, and I've added these little shelves, and I can put, I can change this out, maybe put seasonal things or new paintings up there, and I think that's going to be fun to do. So this stereo system is pretty neat. This is an old stereo that we really weren't using. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make this a stereo for the studio? I had an old receiver that was part of the stereo system, but I replaced it with this, which is a newer Bluetooth model. So now I can listen to music directly from my phone to this. It's pretty cool. And then we got down here the old school 5-disc changer for CDs and even cassettes. I have a few cassettes. Being able to listen to music and whatnot is very important to me when I'm painting and drawing. I also can run sound from this monitor through that stereo. When that's not being used to monitor my filming, I can use it to watch YouTube or podcasts or whatever. This is my paper shelf for the smaller paper. I have another paper shelf out in my office area for the large sheets. I really pared this down. I had a lot of paper that I had intended to test or try and just decided to give a lot of that away because I was never going to use it. I have a little sort of shelf unit back here that just holds immediate necessities for painting. Some squirt bottles, a dryer, little pucks for propping up drawing boards and easels, and ceramic palettes. I have more palettes down here. This is my cabaret area. This is the same as it was in the other studio. I've got just a couple of drawers here of various paints and palettes. More palettes. Got some watercolor pencils there and more palettes at the bottom. Won't go through that in detail. Just odds and ends here. Solvents, some white, some masking fluid, just things that are more immediate need. And I have restructured a lot of my brush holding. It's all been sort of downsized, if you can believe that. I had all kinds of coffee mugs, and now I'm using these racks instead. But I like this. It's a lot more consolidated. So over here, I've had a lot of questions about that cabinet, which came from Hobby Lobby. I thought it was just a really neat cabinet. This mostly holds pens and paint. The right side is mostly watercolor paint and gouache. Over here are some calligraphy markers, other types of markers, and I have a number of empty drawers, and that's by design. When I moved in here, I downsized or gave away a lot. I gave away actually 6 boxes of art supplies to a local sort of reseller that raises money for like schools and that sort of thing. That's an IKEA unit down there. That's mostly tools and some tape. And I have a number of drawers there that are empty that I'm still organizing. I have a few things still left in the old studio that need to come over, but not many. This I was real excited about. I mentioned this in the moving video, and that is this work table. This is a heavy duty work table that I got used and was just, I mean, look at the stout legs on that thing. This I bought from a local auto club, and I think they would just put like things out on it to display and show people, you know, like new car parts or something. I don't know really what they did with it, but it was a really heavy duty table. When I went to look for a used table, I had not counted on finding anything that robust, but it was really nice. I just keep this cutting mat out here. I can bring any of these drawing boards or whatnot. This is the new Etcher Nano Satchel, which at some point, I hope to, maybe after I get back from Pace, I haven't had a chance to really look at it or play with it. When I get back from Pace, hopefully I might do a bit of a review on that. I may take it with me to Pace. Oh, and by the way, that's an announcement. I will be at Pace next week. Probably by the time you're seeing this video, I will already be there or within a day of being there. Pace is the Plein Air Convention and Expo, begun and promoted through Plein Air Magazine, and Eric Rhodes was very excited to be a part of that this year. They are first time they're east of the Mississippi. It's usually held out west somewhere, so I'm really looking forward to it. And if you follow me on Instagram or want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @mindofwatercolor, and I hope to be able to do several posts from Pace throughout the week while I'm there. Back here behind the desk is just various storage, but back here are easels, booms, light stands, that sort of thing. Tripods, and my big old butt ugly filing cabinet that I've had for years and years. So let's take a look at the art. If you saw my moving video, you know I was very excited about having this big wall, which I now have places to put art. The two big things was this poster, the Star Wars poster, which I've had for about 30 years, and this Bernie Wrightson poster, which I've had for about 40 years. I'm not a horror fan. Bernie Wrightson is sort of a horror illustrator. He's done other things, but I am a huge fan of his inking style. And Frankenstein is a classic, which I love. And he did his own illustrated version of this, which is fantastic. It's heavily influenced by Franklin Booth. So I had both of those professionally framed in museum glass because I didn't want them fading. I had them dry mounted. This is done by Drew Struzan. He's probably one of the most famous poster artists, and if you don't know his name, you probably know his work. I was really happy to get both of those posters up again because they sat in a previous studio for years and sort of overlooked the things that I did. And here's another piece that sat in my studio for years. This is an artist by the name of Dave Dorman. Dave Dorman is sort of a comic illustrator. This is an actual number signed print. He remarked it. It was the cover done for that Indiana Jones comic up there. That's not a valuable comic, but it's just a fantastic illustration. I was able to meet him and talk about his style and process, which is oils. This corner is a bit dark. This is an illustrator that I'm very fond of by the name of Justin Gerard. Young illustrator who I met. My daughter, my oldest daughter, actually went to school with him. He does a lot of hybrid work, meaning he draws and does some of the basic underpainting values in natural media, then he scans it and takes it and finishes it digitally. This is an illustration of Smog, and you can see a little Bilbo down there in the corner. Cool Lord of the Rings illustration. This is new. I'm getting a bit of a glare, but this is an illustrator artist by the name of Justin Donaldson. I'm a big fan of his. I follow him on Instagram. I think he also does the occasional YouTube video. And he teaches, does courses in gouache. He is a gouache virtuoso. I'm just always very impressed with his work. I actually met him at the local comic convention here recently and bought this print from him just before I finished moving in. So the timing was great. Great to get that framed and hung here. This is my work. I have a video on this if you're interested. This is from one of my reenactment photos, and I will link to that video. This is also mine, done for May the 4th, like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, I'm kind of a Star Wars nerd. Well, let's look at the bookshelves, and obviously I'm not going to show you every book. There is sort of a categorization to these books, but only so much as they will fit, because some books don't fit on the right shelf, so I have to put them elsewhere. But in general, I have like art anthologies over here, individual artists, and more art anthologies over here, art of books. I have some sections where there's a lot of children's books with illustrators that I think are particularly good and inspiring to me. I have a section there with art of Star Wars movie with a lot of concept art. Here's some comic art. Now, I don't really collect comics. I did back in the late 80s and 90s, but stopped soon after that. But I still am always very inspired, appreciative of the artists. This is some of the best artists that you will ever meet. I recently got this signed by Jim Lee. Jim Lee is one of my favorite comic artists. Was very talented and got to see a demo done by him. There was a poster up there signed by the same guy. There's miscellaneous books up here. There's some calligraphy. A lot of these top shelf books here are just smaller books that wouldn't fit or fit better up here. And I tried to save the bottom shelves for the really heavy books. Over here, I've got all my splash annuals. We've got some instructive books and there's some cartooning oriented books. Disney, Art of Cuphead, if you know what that is. Fantasia, Warner Brothers. This is a lot of how-to or process books, mostly drawing in watercolor. Just sort of miscellaneous up here. All my sketchbooks are over here. These are ones that are currently in process. I hardly ever finish a sketchbook because I have too many that I've started and not finished. It's what Lindsay Wyrick calls a sketchbook floozy, so I guess I'm a sketchbook floozy. More sketchbooks there. Over here is calligraphy and lettering. Some more miscellaneous stuff. A few comic books. Some of that, a lot of these comic books here I'm going to be getting rid of. Some old magazines down here, and I have called this and called this and called this. It used to take up 2 really long shelves, and I've gotten rid of most and just kept, the most important to me now. So a lot of destashing and downsizing. All right, so what about all the toys and stuff? It kind of looks like I am a pop cult collector, and I'm not. Almost all of these were gifts. Oh, by the way, that is a piece done by my son-in-law. He's married to my oldest daughter, and he is in comics. Actually has a comic company of his own. Love that piece, and it fits with my little Star Wars corner over here. So shout out to Michael Watkins at Highburn Comics. With the exception of a few things, almost all of these were gifts. That lighted Tron sign I bought myself. Love Lord of the Rings. I used to love to paint miniatures, so this is the Fellowship. Painted those. That was a gift, that Treebeard there. I bought this figurine, this Ring Wraith, but I painted that. And of course there's a couple of Lord of the Rings books behind it by Alan Lee and John Howe, 2 of the big concept illustrators for Lord of the Rings. Calendar. I need to set that. That's actually wrong. It's the 15th today. But just various things. Dune, that action figure, this mug, and that book were all gifts. When you have 5 kids and 11 grandkids and they know what you're interested in, they love to buy this stuff. So it's an X-Wing Lego. I'm not really into Lego, but we bought this. My grandson actually put it together for us. Pretty cool looking right there. I've had these in my studios for a few years. It's Darth Tater and Spider Spud. Star Wars is sort of an interesting thing for me. My wife and I, we were dating at the time. We weren't married yet. And we saw the original in 1977. And if you haven't talked to somebody who has seen the original, you really ought to. Not that it was any different, but that was a time period mid to late 70s, where movies just were honestly not all that good. I mean, we're kind of going through that right now, to be honest. There were some okay movies, and it's like when that came out, nobody had ever heard of it. Who's George Lucas? It's like, what? I think he did American Graffiti, and it was about the only thing anybody knew. It was the buzz of town. It's like, have you seen Star Wars? Have you seen Star Wars? Have you seen Star Wars? And ever since, in all my life, since then, has anybody ever talked about a movie the way they talked about that? It was so iconic and so groundbreaking for the time. Now, if you'd never seen a Star Wars and the original, were to debut today, nobody would think twice. They'd go, oh, big deal. It really became just embedded in our culture as an icon, as a sort of a turning point for sci-fi and fantasy type movies. And then after that, you just had all kinds of movies trying to copy the Star Wars lightning in a bottle. It was amazing.
Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million.
Whether you like Star Wars or not was culturally pivotal. It just did something that no other movie, at least I don't think since, has done. Then fast forward 20 years to the 20th anniversary, and they did the re-releases, and George Lucas went back in and changed. He didn't change the movie, but he updated all the effects with digital abilities just to kind of clean them up a little bit. Still the same classic stuff. And what's neat is now you had a new generation that appreciated the movies all over again, and you had millennials mostly, a whole new flock of toys, whole new flock of promotions. But on top of that, you had the boomers like me who were saying, oh yeah, I'm going to take you to see this. This was something, back in the day, and this is amazing that they're doing this. And you were able to go back into the theaters, 96, 97, when they re-released these, and watch them again. That's the big deal, with Star Wars for people like me. It's a unique story in film history. Tron is sort of a personal favorite of mine. My wife and I were young marrieds. I just loved the effects of Tron, the original Tron. We had purchased our very first VCR. We had only 2 of our children had been born. One of them was an infant. And this was one of the first tapes we ever rented. Movie rentals were kind of new at the time too. We soon ended up deciding we couldn't afford the VHS player. We'd only had a couple weeks and we were poor. I mean, it's like we can't be spending this much money on a VCR. So it was still practically new. We took it back. But this was one of the first movies. And I remember my wife and I stayed up late and watched it twice in a row. And I've just always loved Tron. And I could tell you a story, I'm not going to do it now, about the technology in the original Tron, which was cutting edge at the time, and then within like a year or two, it was made obsolete.
This is Blue Leader.
Really neat. And then they came out with Tron Legacy a few years back, which was a sequel to it. But it's always been a significant, maybe not as much as Star Wars, but it's always been a significant, inspiring point of time in my life. So yeah, all of this is inspiration. It's nostalgia. But this is my cave. This is my habitat. This is where I come and get inspired, and I am just thoroughly enjoying working here. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this little tour, this little update. We will see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.